We will talk about UIs in general. There's this blog post that I shared, which I'm just going to summarize really quick. I'll show off the flight director screen for Thorium Classic, and then we'll talk about how to simplify the flight director screen on Thorium Nova. So I'll put the link in the Zoom chat really quick, just so that you have it available. There it is. And the idea here is that back in the day, we used to interact with computers using punch cards and then command line interfaces. And then eventually we got graphical user interfaces with desktops and folders and files and stuff. And that's kind of the way that it's been for a while. I mean, yeah, obviously with cell phones and stuff, things have been a little bit different, but
Yep.
the article actually gives a shout out to HyperCard as being very much ahead of its time. The idea being that it gives users the tools necessary that they can design and build their own UIs really, really easily without needing to know a whole ton of programming. Fun fact, the space centers that I used to work with they used to be, all of their controls were in HyperCard, made by high school students. It's kind of amazing when you think about it, what they were able to accomplish just with HyperCard.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah. So it goes on to say that it says that tools can have either high ceilings or low ceilings, which is how much you're able to do with it eventually. And then you have high floors and low floors, which is how much it takes to get started. So for example, Microsoft Excel has a relatively low floor. It's really easy to start typing in numbers and then to add a single formula that says cell A1 plus cell B1. And then you start getting into the mathematical formulas. And then eventually you've learned enough that you're able to produce really complicated, complex spreadsheets that can do all kinds of crazy things. It also uses the example of Ableton Live, which is a program for musicians to create music that is also very easy to get started for somebody who knows very little about music theory and composition and such. But then actual like professional musicians can use it to produce their music using powerful interface.
Yeah, I'm familiar with Ableton to an extent, but yeah.
Yeah. So the idea I want to capture here is that's the way that Thorium Nova, especially the flight director experience, should be. It should be really, really easy to get started and to just go. So having lots of automation, having a really simple flow for starting a flight, making it so there's a lot of content that's built in so people don't have to create their own content. And then that's the low floor. But the high ceiling is being able to create your own plugins, write your own missions. And then the question for today is, where does the flight director experience sit along that axis? How low is the floor, so to speak? So I've got Thorium Classic pulled up right now. Let me just bump up my screen, the zoom really quick, and then I'll share my screen. So here it is. This actually comes from another space center in Utah. I'm just going to use their missions, their flights that they have running. And then you click go to core, and that takes you to this screen here. Let me change this to standard because that's more common. So there's
You
obviously,
definitely need a UI pass.
say that again.
You definitely need a UX pass. Am I lagging?
No, you're fine. Be just
Okay.
a little more specific, like what's wrong with the UX here?
It's just everywhere. I'm really not sure how to put it. Just it looks scattered, I guess. So yeah, I'm not trying to put you down or anything. I'm just
No,
saying it
you're
looks.
fine. You're fine. I
Yeah.
actually, this is good feedback. I'm just starting to take notes right now. So
Okay. So for example, it looks more like a tool for like a open. I get it's it's an open source project, but how do I put this? Like a game dev tool that I would use, opposed to a flight director tool. So
Yeah. And that's almost by design. Let me see if I can find some screenshots that I took of the cores that I based this on. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are just taking a look at the old Thorium classic flight director screen. I'm just trying to find some screenshots that I took of, there they are. Wait, nope, that's Thorium Classic. So Thorium is based on the simulator controls that were built way back when in the old space centers that I used to work at.
okay,
And the core is designed around that as well. The idea is that the flight directors at those space centers are comfortable and familiar with that and don't necessarily want to change. I'm trying to find
makes sense then.
screenshots of what those old controls looked like, but I can't find them. So give me just a second. David, if you have thoughts about what you're seeing right now, you're more than welcome to share those. I'd love to hear.
So only having looked at it once before, and it's been a long time, and seeing this, is this the new proposal, or are you just showing what was there before?
This is the old.
Okay. Because I'll say to you what I said to myself, it's a very cluttered display.
Uh-huh. Yeah. The idea here, like flight directors, I wish I invited the Space Center flight directors to come, but it doesn't look like any of them are going to make it, which is a bummer. But the flight directors are very interested in being able to have everything at a glance. So let me switch this. This is just one of the layouts that I had. I was trying to change the way that flight directors approach their flight directing. So the idea is they always have access to the sensor grid, to their lighting controls, to this, which lets them send commands to the stations, change the alert condition, that sort of thing. The core feed was a new invention in Thorium that just shows them all of the actions that are taking place as the mission progresses, the timeline over here, and then they're able to configure what goes on here in the middle. So I can come here and change this to, say, the railgun core, or I can change this to the thruster core, whatever. I'm going to switch this to the dynamic core, which just takes that middle section and spreads it out all the way. And oh, it looks like I don't have one available here, which is a bummer. I might actually restart Thorium just so I can show you what some of the other space centers do with their cores. It's kind of, it is a sight to behold, certainly.
And being a flight director, I would think that yes, you would want to have as much information as you can at your fingertips. So I can completely understand that approach.
Yes, but that doesn't make it particularly useful for beginners who are totally overwhelmed.
Yes, you made the point before I did. So yeah, you can see where I'm going.
Oh yes, oh yes. So let's see if this one has, it does. So you ready for this? This is the layouts that one of the flight directors, his name is Connor, uses. He doesn't even use the next core. He just throws everything here. I'm sure it would look a little bit better if I were to zoom out to actual size. But it's just a complete mess. There's just so much going on. And frankly, I didn't do an amazing job of designing these core components. They're designed entirely for utility, not so much for the appearance. The idea being you have the yellow are numbers that you can edit. Red are numbers that are important that you need to be paying attention to, so we can see the warp engines and main reactor at 100% heat. And then blue is just there to notify you. But there are actions here that aren't entirely obvious. Like I can double click on the shields in order to raise and lower them. That's not entirely apparent from this UI. So certainly much to be desired. I still haven't found those screenshots that I was looking for. I'm going to take another. No, it's not here. Yeah, it must be on my other computer, and it'll take way too long for me to find them. So I will.
You're looking for the from Revolution.
Yes. Hi, Matt.
Hi.
Welcome.
Let's see if we can
Yeah.
find them.
Yeah. If you can find one, I can let you screen share just to show us.
So just looking at this, I have a couple of ideas. These ideas are not thought out, but I'm just going to spout them off anyway. And you can cut me off if you don't like them or whatever. When you're working on a crew on a ship, you are working together collaboratively. The flight director, on the other hand, is generally solo operation. Thus, he should be able to do everything in case, you know, one or more of the crew members die or become disabled, or otherwise he needs to step in. So having all these controls, he's like the backup pilot for everything that goes on. Plus, he's got whatever he's got to do to make the story go forward. With that in mind, if we come up with either a set of consoles that are typical groupings of task cards, or all the individual task cards, we could say that the GM or the flight director should share his backup responsibilities with some other people who are sort of like a shadow crew. So if you make this such that the responsibilities could be segmented, then it might be a little easier for, say, for bringing someone on board who doesn't need to know what every one of these boxes does, what every one of these controls do, but you could have a flight director who knows all that stuff, and then have B flight director who is given a subset of that to help him manage, if that makes sense.
Actually, that is what the space centers do for their multi-deck ships. They have two flight directors. One of them is called second chair, and they operate mostly they operate the parts of the ship that are internal, while the flight director deals with everything external.
Right, and that's a reasonable division, a logical division. I would say if we're going to go for, you know, having our cake and eat it too, make it so that it's easy to set up whatever divisions you want, depending on how many flight directors you have. So you can have the single all-powerful flight control director who just puts everything on the screen. You can have the pair who kind of share responsibility. You can have the team who have, you know, have it divided up logically, indoor, outdoor, and I don't know, action and NPC. You know, whatever suits the flight director's needs. Again, this is catering to a non-automated flight director paradigm.
Right.
You may not need all of these high-powered controls if much of your mission is mostly automated.
Yeah, because in an ideal world, all that you would need is the core feed so that you know what is happening. You can see, oh, they just transported such and such, but you don't have to add the transporter targets like you do in Thorium. The transporter targets are automatically made available to the crew. Same thing with the tractor beam. You know when they activate and deactivate the tractor beam and what they're attaching to, but you don't have to come over here and say, okay, we are adding a tractor target that is the USS Ranger and giving them that target that way manually. That is entirely managed by the controls. So in an ideal world, you would just have the core feed and the timeline, and then you'd be able to see what's going on your flight director screen. Give me just 1 second. I want to pull up another set of simulator controls that has a nice flight director experience. It is Dreamflight Adventures, which is significantly more automated than Thorium Classic or a lot of stuff.
I found the Revolution controls, so I just need to put them onto the other computer. So while you're pulling up those ones, I'll get it transferred over.
Super, super. So let me just reshare my screen so that we can see the whole desktop. It operates with the view screen as the server, so I've got to do that. And then I'll go to the flight director screen. And this is what it looks like. So they've got their timeline over here. And you can click the little arrow to run any of these timeline steps. And then you've got the sensor view, the universe right here. And the way that they operate is they have specific stages that you jump between. And when you jump between each stage, it populates it with objects. So the objects themselves are not persistent. They get wiped out anytime you change stages. But you can see the cruise ship here. I'm going to come over to the view screen and override their movement just so you can see them as they are now moving around. And that's something that's going to be really important for Thorium Nova because the flight director needs to be able to see into the universe. And then this right here is where you can see the damage of their various systems. So I'll have this hollow drone attack the ship. So you can see the way I did that is I selected the ship I wanted to attack. I chose the attack button here, and then I clicked on the target that I wanted them to attack. So you can see as they attack me, the damage goes down here. This right here, I'm not entirely sure how this operates. This is where they can send messages from. This is where they can set radiation levels, I guess, sound effects. It has a thorium integration too, which is actually kind of funny, but that's neither here nor there. Anyway, the flight director can adjust their music, play some sound effects, change what's on the view screen, but everything that goes on their actual controls is entirely automated. The flight director has very little control of that. All that they can do is just break their ship systems by dragging this, repair their ship systems by doing that, or control the NPCs around the ships. We'll have you be friendly again. So that was all that I really wanted to demonstrate, was just the fact that it has this view here, which is super important, and then a couple of other views that they can toggle between. But this is obviously much more approachable since there's not nearly as much going on the screen. Nice icons, just good experience altogether. Versus this, which is just like blah. Any questions about this? Any thoughts?
If I had good internet, I would show you what a GM screen on MT Epsilon looks like.
I think I can accommodate. Do I have empty epsilon? I do.
Well,
Look at
where I
me.
was going to go was some of the things that I see in Dreamflight, where you select an NPC ship essentially, and then you can direct them to do things. You can have them fly to a destination. You can have them fly to a destination ignoring everybody.
Uh-oh. David, we lost you.
You can have them stop. You can have them become friendly or suddenly become an enemy, become neutral.
Yeah.
You can have them attack. You can direct them to attack something else. You can direct them to dock at a station.
Yes.
All that stuff that I just mentioned, that's built in. I don't have to do anything special to do that.
Exactly. And I would love for Thorium Nova to have a similar experience.
I have those screenshots, by the way.
Okay. Let's do that right now. Yeah. So basically, just to finish that thought, when you select the NPC, it gives you the all of the controls about the NPC. You can change their health here. You can change whether they automatically regenerate health, whether they absorb 75% of damage to make it so they don't get destroyed as quickly. Edit labels, which are used to target individual objects using the timeline. And then all of those controls commands that you were talking about and the speed with which they move. So all of that stuff would be awesome to be able to integrate into the Thorium Nova Flight Director screen as well. Okay, I'm going to quit this for now. Any other thoughts on Dreamflight Adventures before we switch over to the other controls, the Revolution controls? Okay, take it away, Matt.
Awesome. I'll just share these right here. So they're not huge. They're actually quite small. And Alex, you'll probably recognize these. At least I hope you recognize them. These are the original. This is the core that Alex used to fly with when he was a flight director at the Christmas.
I don't think we're seeing.
We're seeing
a different screen. Yeah.
Multicolored waves and they're static.
Oh,
yeah.
Curses.
Yep. There we go.
Let's just do that. Okay.
That works.
This is the screen.
That is the Phoenix controls. Ugh. I love it. That was the first. Hang on, go back to the last one.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the first set of controls that I built. And you can even see, let me grab my drawing tools. Ha ha ha. So again, it's centered around the sensor grid here. And you've got all kinds of stuff all over the place using that same two color, the yellow with the blue, indicating things that you can edit and whatnot.
Right.
What's I gonna say? Some nice Stargate references here.
Oh, before I forget, one of the things that when I was talking earlier about dividing up responsibilities for a flight director, if you made the controls that you give to the clients or to the crew the same ones or look identical essentially to what you would do as a flight director to do the same things like raising and lowering shields, then you can train up your flight directors with crew who have played all those consoles. And then when you give them, flight director responsibility, they'll say, oh, I know how to do that. It looks just like it is on the client.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Very similar. Couple of slight differences. For example, let's see, here's the shields up here. And the flight director is able to see all of their shields, but the flight director also has the ability to directly manipulate the integrity of the shields, which is something the shield operator can't do. So you're right. You can start as crew and learn how all of the stations work. And then you can see how those stations work on the core, what extra capabilities the flight director has, like being able to click the hit button to damage the shields in some way.
Right.
Obviously, this is very manual. The hope is that the shields would automatically take damage.
Right. Hopefully that's built into the model in the future.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the flight director should still be able to override it in the event that they want to give the crew just a little bit of help to make it so that they don't die right away.
Yeah, or if you're like me, you want to give the NPCs a little bit of help to make the crew die faster.
Exactly. So that's another thing. The model that we're using here and in Thorium Classic is focused on a single ship, but you have all of these other ships out there that are virtually the same as the crew's ship. They're just not player ships, but they still have shield systems. They still have weapon systems, and they behave exactly the same way as the crew's ship, as if they had a fake crew running them.
Right.
And so as the flight director, yes, you should be able to click on any ship and open up its properties and do whatever you want, which amplifies the complexity significantly. Like, you got to know exactly what you want to do.
Yeah. So forgive me. I just want to say that there's a related set of features on the GM screen for Empty Epsilon. When you click on either the player ship or an NPC ship, you can click the tweak button, and there are a variety of parameters that you can change for that. You can lower the various shield settings, you can increase the strength of the shields, you can heal their hull or decrease their hull, you can, dink their beam weapons so that they suddenly are failing. Same thing with their missiles. All the systems, all that stuff's controllable. It's but it's like this where you click on the ship and then you get a screen and you have to choose what you want to do.
How would you like to stop sharing, unless there's anything else we want to talk about these controls?
Well, the only other thing would be going along with, let me get
the second chair.
Yeah, second chair.
Which is much less colorful.
Yes. And just like you were saying, David, you having that separate kind of sub flight director, this is basically what they control. It's just a separate feature set.
Yeah,
I think is basically what you're saying, right?
So they've got security here. Oh, hang on, let me turn on drawing again. They've got security here. They've got the ship systems here, which damage control uses to repair the ship. Damage control is all right here. They've got internal sensors right here, and they also have external sensors here. They also handle the long-range messages, which is something outside of the ship. Cargo here, short-range communication here, and then the shuttle here. Oh, I remember when I added the shuttle. That was so much fun. So mostly focused on stuff inside the ship. But then if you go back to the flight director controls,
hang on.
You're fine. You'll notice right here, down here in the bottom left, there's this second tab. What that actually does is it opens up and includes many of the same controls that are on the second chair screen, which is a feature that's totally unnecessary in Thorium Classic, because you can open up as many core windows as you want and configure them however you want. It doesn't matter what's on them. You can put whatever you want on them. So if you wouldn't mind stopping your screen sharing, I will start an empty Epsilon server really quick and show off the game master view. Let me just share my screen really quick.
Otherwise, I'm asking how the interview went. I'm on the phone. Otherwise, I'd ask you how the interview went.
So this is what it looks like. You can see all of the ships. So I can zoom out and let me see. Go away. I'm not entirely. Oh, there we go. So I can pan around. You can see the player ship here. You can see all of the enemy ships flying around. There's that tweak button that David was talking about, where I can see their call sign, their heading, information about their ship, whether or not they can be destroyed, their weapons, etc. Give me a sec. My wife's calling.
Yeah, my wife just came home. So
I'm back.
all right. So if you close that.
Yeah. Let's see. There's the close button.
Allow me to demonstrate. It's in the upper right. Yeah. So if you select, let's say, the enemy in Delta 7, can you select one of those? Or the one in G4, doesn't matter.
Give me a second.
Yeah, so there's two of them there.
Two. Yeah. Well, let me zoom in then to make it easier for me to select just one.
Yeah. Okay. So you can see it's got orders that say roaming. If you want to direct it to go somewhere, right click.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right click on the screen, and now it's the orders have changed to fly towards.
Mm-hmm.
let's see, if you click on an enemy station, then
An
it'll
enemy to
attack
them.
that enemy station.
Yeah, let me send it to, let me
You
actually,
can
I'm going to
have
move it.
attack the player, of course.
Yeah, I'm going to move it closer to the player. And then if I right click on the player, then the orders change to attack.
Yeah. But you have to get right on the player. It's kind of finicky about that. So yeah,
Yeah.
the orders change to attack, and you can see it's going to go after the player. If you, I think, yeah. So those are flying into attack. But you can also at the bottom right, you can see you can make them idle. You can have them stand their ground or defend a location. Those are, like I said,
Okay, so those are extra
they're all,
orders that you can give that are,
there's a lot of them are done by key clicks.
is very
The mouse
fancy.
clicks. So if towards a location, ignoring the enemies so that you can make them retreat. Because if you don't tell them to do that, then they'll come back and start attacking.
Yeah. Interesting, interesting. And then, of course, you've got all of these options here that allow you to generate waves of ship. Is this different for every scenario, or is it just the basic scenario?
Yeah. So all those buttons on the left that are under the faction, those are programmed by the scenario.
Okay. So if I were to start a
So
new
whoever wrote-
scenario, this is the basic
Yeah,
scenario.
yeah, that's the basic scenario has these buttons in it. An empty scenario, for example, has whatever buttons were programmed for the empty scenario.
So
Yeah,
let's
the
take a
space.
look. Okay, so can create a random asteroid field, a random nebula field. Interesting. It's fascinating.
Yeah, so it's whoever wrote the scenario that puts those buttons up there. I should send you my sandbox because you talk about having all of the controls in one screen at a time. Well, if you're writing a script that you don't have just to control the engine for, you have to do some finagling to get things out there. And I have a hidden tree structure of buttons. So you click buttons and it opens up another set of buttons, and you click another button, it opens up another set of buttons to do various and sundry functions that you want to do in the sandbox. So it's like a generic mission with some preset terrain, which you can select with buttons, by the way, whichever set you want to start with.
Right.
But then there's a whole bunch of actions that are hidden under a tree structure of, they show up as you click through the buttons.
I love that. That is such a good idea.
Well, the thing about that is if you are constrained to work within just a set of buttons, then you have to think about what you're going to present and what order you're going to present it in, so that it kind of makes sense. And with all the junk that we've stuck, organization it could use some more thinking, but I haven't gone back to change it.
Exactly. No, that's really interesting. What's fascinating about it is the fact that like that is your flight director controls in Empty Epsilon. The mission decides what the flight director gets the ability to control.
Right.
Like
Everything else has to be automated. So it's
exactly
sort of a reverse paradigm. You have to automate everything, except what controls you want to give to the flight director. Then those
that are
things
specific for the mission.
Yes.
That is so fascinating. That is,
yeah, it's an inverted paradigm, which is why I keep going. I keep going back and forth. It's like, okay, I like having all those controls as a flight director, but I want to sometimes be part of the mission too. On Saturdays when I play with the MC Epsilon people, if I'm the GM, sometimes I get on board the ship and help them whatever they're battling. You know, even though I know what's going on, I pretend I'm the engineer or whatever. I'm just trying to help the ship.
Well, and that's the nice thing about Empty Epsilon is that you can just hop over and be like, okay, I'm engineer on Atlantis now. Woohoo.
Yep.
It's so easy.
Yeah. All right. I just wanted to show the GM screen and you did that for me. Thank you. Well,
yeah. Thank you, David. That's really awesome. Anybody else want to make any comments about this or anything else we've talked about so far?
I mean, I would probably just say that Empty Epsilon does a really, really great job at showing external space and what's going on, I guess, around the ship. What Thorium does really, really well on is showing a lot of the internals
In the
and
ship, yeah.
the things that are inside the ship.
Oh,
And finding a way to marry those two, I think, would be a wonderful way to expand on Thorium Nova. Because I absolutely love Empty Epsilon's interface and having that simplistic yet very robust system of giving the flight director exactly what they need. I guess with the map, they can see exactly what's going on and being able to enjoy the mission that way. But then also being able to, I guess, step into the ship for the ways that Thorium Nova has is also quite an important thing, and being able to have internal conflicts or things going on there is also I would say, critical part of the mission for Thorium Nova.
Yeah. I think a big part of what makes it successful for Empty Epsilon is the fact that there is so much information that's available just on this view. You can see the heading of all of the ships. You can see kind of what their focus is. So this ship here, without even clicking on it, I can see that it's looking in this direction, or maybe it's these ships that are looking in that direction. No, you can see that this guy's trying to go in that direction. He's turning around now. It just took
on
him
the
a little while
GM
to turn around.
screen, you get the Pathfinder paths. So
Exactly,
in
which
these ships, you get a very light, faint line to say, this is where I'm going. You get a red one that says, this is my target. And then another one that says, and this is the path I'm going to take to get to my target.
Yeah. And then you can zoom in a little closer to see the health bars, the shields, and the weapons arcs. And then I'm sure as these guys start engaging, we'll see, there it is, the projectiles that they're firing off.
Yeah.
So being able to see
far enough, you see the projectiles. If
Yeah.
you zoom out, you don't see them anymore.
Yeah. Which is really nice, actually, being able to remove that clutter, except when you're actually zoomed in.
Yep.
This will be interesting to do in Thorium Nova in 3 dimensions, with realistic space sizes. Like, you'd never have ships that are actually this close to each other. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. And again, I'm not married to that idea. It's possible that we eventually decide to fudge the size of space for playability reasons.
Yeah,
So,
there's size, and then there's how fast you can move and how fast you can turn. All of those are
exactly.
going to play into
Yeah.
to what
I
you
thought
can do.
with Thorium Nova Prime, I thought I had a pretty good balance of those things, between the impulse engines, the thrusters rotating the ship, and the warp engines to actually get you places. I thought it was okay, but it'll be interesting to see how it actually turns out in play tests when we get it re-implemented.
My wife just got home, and we're going to go out to dinner. So I'm going to abandon you guys and wish you fond farewell, and we will talk again later.
Your contribution has been monumental, as always. Thank you, and have a lovely dinner.
Oh, thank you. See y'all later.
See you, David.
See ya.
Hi guys. So, by the way, welcome, Natalie. I know you've been here just sitting quietly for a while, but to recap,
I'm the most quiet.
yes, we just went over basically all of the controls that we could think of, just to talk about kind of what they look like, what's good about them, as we're discussing Thorium. So we have about 6.5 minutes left before we need to hop off and hop back on because Zoom. But I want to show that command palette interface that what was his name? Chris? Connor, that Connor made. So I'm just going to scale this up really quick so we can watch. The idea is you have this field that's on the flight director screen, and you can see different commands that you can run. Hang on, I'm going to pause it as we go. You can see the different commands that you can run. So he just put these in, however. But you can click on one of them to just run it, or you can type to search in a command. And then it has context for the individual command. So in this case, we're assigning a side quest, which is like a second storyline. And then you can click on the specific officer that you want to assign the second storyline to, In this case, he has security that he's picked, and then it's just got a bunch of security second story lines built right in. You can pick shuffle to automatically pick one, or you can pick the one that you want. And then it gives you a confirmation of what the action actually is. You can see specifically what it does, and then you click the confirm button, and that triggers that second storyline. Couple of things I really like about this. It's definitely like a power user tool, but it would be awesome if we could encourage people to use this themselves, because it means that you can do everything just from the keyboard. So you type in the command and then you hit the enter button. You can tab through in order to choose the different options. It's also a really great way to educate the flight director in what kinds of options are available to them, what things they can do. But it's been designed such, like it would take a ton of work to make it as good as this mock-up is. But like being able to add the context to each action so that you know, okay, this is an action that is performed on one of the stations on the ship, and being able to search the stations, and then knowing what options you have at that point is just really, really great. It makes it so easy to be able to perform these tasks. So basically, there are two problems that the flight director is trying to solve. The flight director needs to see what's going on. That's kind of what we've been talking about up to this point. But then here, this is the flight director being able to perform actions and manipulate the universe. So like that. And this could probably be used for both, where you can like type in and say heat on USS Voyager, or reactor heat on USS Voyager, and it pops up and tells you what the reactor heat is, kind of like Siri or Google. Anyone have any other thoughts about this?
I think just like what you're saying, it's a great way to explain to the flight director what situations are going in. And I actually wouldn't mind having this as part of the flight director interface. The biggest question that I would have is how to transition perhaps a newer game master or flight director onto the more advanced systems. And perhaps even something that they can select it and then it populates whatever view that they see. So it doesn't necessarily just do it all for them, but it can populate a view so then they can see where that's going and then fire things off, as an example, or something like that, because I can see a lot of people getting stuck in this simplistic UI.
Yes. Well, simplistic, I think, is not fair to this, because this is really very powerful. But I agree with what you're talking about. Make it so that it can open or highlight specific sections of the flight director page. So they can search for a ship and it will immediately take their universe view to show them that ship. They can, and if they search for a specific attribute of that ship, like the shields on the USS Ranger, then it takes them to the USS Ranger in the universe view and opens up the view that shows them the shields for that ship.
Yeah, and perhaps I misspoke and shouldn't have said simplistic UI, but the simple function of this system, because it's going to give you pre-baked responses. So I misspoke there, but yes,
no,
having
you're
something
right.
like that would be absolutely great, having that search feature.
Yeah. Anyone else have any thoughts? Okay. Matt, I actually kind of really wish that you had shown the jumpstart controls, because one of the things that we've decided is that Thorium Nova is going to have baked in station configurations, station complements. So you won't be able to configure the stations with whatever cards you want. Instead, you say, I want that ship. You get the choice between a big ship or a little ship. Well, you can have many different kinds of ships, but there will be big ships and little ships. If you pick a little ship, then you can fly with between say 1 and 8 people. And if you pick a big ship, then you can fly with between 6 and 12 people. And those are the number of stations that it creates. Obviously, you can have more people by having them double up on stations, but that's the idea, is maximum of 12 stations with the cards predetermined based on the systems that are available on the ship. So if you don't have a cloaking device, you don't have a cloaking device card, and that's just automatically handled for you. So that's the point where the Zoom meeting cut off. So I'm just going to finish that thought. The idea is you have each of these stations that are static, and you have the same thing happen statically on the core, where you have different sections of the core for each of the stations that you have in the current flight. So you have one for the flight control, one for the communications, one for the engineer, etc. And it could have all of the controls just grouped together, or it could have each of the individual controls for that station in their own separate tab, or separated by the cards that are on that station. Obviously, that adds the first option adds complexity because it makes it look really messy and stuff, might be intimidating to beginners. The other hides some of the controls from the user. So the fact is, flight directing is always going to be a little bit complicated, and that should be something to be expected. But like David said, it should be something that grows naturally out of being a crew member. So if you've been a crew member enough, making the jump to flight director shouldn't be too complicated. For the rest of the meeting, it was pretty much just me and Matt. Natalie hopped on a little bit later. We continued discussing this idea together, and then Natalie and I took a look back at Thorium Classic one last time and talked about some of the decisions that I made as I was building that. So enjoy. Okay, looks like Natalie won't be coming. So if you and I want to just keep talking, I love your ideas.
I can chat for probably about 10 more minutes because otherwise I actually need to go fill out my ballot and vote.
Yes, vote.
So, yeah. But yeah, I actually really like that power search feature. That's really convenient.
Connor did such a good job. I'm blown away. I hope he does more because it like just, and I hope that I can do the actual UI justice. I hope it's okay that I'm totally stealing your idea from what's it? That one set of controls that you named.
Jumpstart?
Jumpstart, yeah, that's it.
Oh.
But in reality, it's just stealing this idea, which has been around for like 15 years. You've seen this before, right?
Yeah, who's that from again? That's
Todd.
What was
Todd
that?
Rasband.
Oh, that's right. It was Todd.
Yeah. Todd and BJ put this together. And it's basically the same principle where you have different sections for the different things.
Yeah, mine is just a little bit more space. It takes up a lot more space rather than having that largeness.
Well, yes, they don't have specific things in any of these, which makes it kind of hard. So,
yeah.
But being able to take the command palette and have it focus on specific elements or lock on to one of those sections of the page, so that you know where that particular control is handy.
I mean, looking over the ideas, it's almost like you have to kind of just pick one and go with it, because I do love the interface of Empty Epsilon and having that more holistic universal view. But then being able to have those cards and the basically cards flipping between different views from Todd Rasband is also great, but you don't want to overload the flight director with having too much.
Exactly. I didn't even show this, which I've shown you before, but I love it so much I'm going to show you again. And after this conversation, I don't know if it's something that I actually want to do, but I still just love it. Where is it? There it is. Let me share my screen again. So this flex layout thing. Run the demo. This, like, I wish I could just rip out the current core of Thorium and plop this in because it's so good. Because you've got the tabs still. Well, so you've got the different sections, but you also can make them tabs, so you can flip between them that way, which is so nice. And then you can dock them at the bottom and make it so that they pop in and off. Yeah, just
And on
super
the
great.
sides.
And on the sides, yep. So we've got this here, which is great, and it comes built in with the saved layouts, which is so nice. And hang on, I'm getting a phone call.
You a popular man.
Yeah, no.
That's really super convenient, actually.
What, being able to just drag?
Well,
from
just
here?
that somebody already has a library for all this.
Oh, this? Yeah, exactly. But that's the thing is, do we want to make it so the flight director can create whatever layout they want? Is that a good idea? I just barely got done telling you that I think that's a bad idea. I think we should make static layouts for every single station configuration based on what controls are on the cruise screens.
It could be something that's more of a dynamic core versus next core.
I was just thinking that.
Yeah, where there's the option to do it for the really intense game masters who, including, I saw on this Flex layout, they were able to pull up other websites.
Yeah.
Including for the more intense GM who says, oh, not only do I want to pull up my Thorium controls on the side, but I also want to pull in my main story or something else that I'm telling. So I'm going to pull this in on a different tab and still have it all integrated in with what I'm doing. And I see that as a very beneficial thing for the more serious game masters. But the ones who are just kind of jumping in because they're like, oh, it's my turn to be the flight director, then they just use the normal UI.
Yeah. Yeah, but it would still be able to automatically add, like, we could still have the command palette at the top or the command palette accessible via keystroke. And then when they choose to open up a specific section, it just pops it in. Whoop. Oh, yeah, it just pops it into whatever tab they're currently working on, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh, no, it's like, that's so cool. So I click add indirect. It puts this right here on the page and it says, add this to wherever you want it to go. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. Bah, yes. Yes, teeny tiny.
Yeah, so I mean, I think having some static views, a simplistic view, including something that's perhaps like empty epsilon where they can see the full view, and then they have that command palette is actually really convenient for a beginner flight director. But then maybe bringing them in and somehow bridging the gap between that and this, and showing that no, you can actually have a more advanced system if you choose to.
Yeah. Yep.
But that's cool. That's really cool.
Very cool. I'm such a fan. What does that do? Hang on, I need to switch it back to gray. Real-time resize. What? I don't even know what that means.
It's probably as something goes along, or I don't know, data gets built out, it'll resize it for you.
I suppose so. That's possible.
I have no clue.
Okay.
But that is
Anyway, let me double check my. So we talked about what should stay, what should be added, what should be removed, what should change, how can we make it easy and still powerful. Yeah. Okay. I feel satisfied with where we ended up with this. Like, I think the bottom line is you've got some good new ideas. I really love David's idea of basically macro buttons from Thorium Classic, but defined by the mission. So you start a mission and it creates the macro buttons for you. And
Yeah.
instead of having them be macro buttons, have it be a menu where you have these buttons that perform actions that you can navigate through.
And
That
then
would
would
be
you still
awesome.
have that along with the timeline?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Because you still need the timeline to be able. Well, it depends on the mission. I suppose some missions could just create these macro buttons, layouts, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and then that's it. And the flight director just gets to do whatever they want. Gives them a good opportunity to fly by the seat of their pants, but with some actions, some things that they can do.
Yeah,
Such a
I
good
could
idea.
actually see that, having the timeline be the linear path, but then if they want to go a little bit more nonlinear or throw in, because perhaps the flight is too easy for this particular experienced crew, so you have the macro buttons that you throw in some challenges. Rogue
Exactly. Or like the fact that it's built into the timeline means that you could make it so that the macro button does stuff to the entities that you create as part of the timeline. So you make it so your big bad ship is 50% weaker or 50% stronger just by clicking a button. You say, oh, we need to make this guy stronger for this crew. And it's able to do that because it's integrated in with the mission.
Yeah.
That's good. Such a good idea. I'm surprised I never noticed that in Empty Epsilon before. This is why I love this community that is coming from so many different places, bringing all of these ideas.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'll be really interesting to see how this all shakes out, especially with the fact that like you have multiple ships. I think there's going to be like it still is going to be specialized for the player ships. So all of the core cards themselves are just going to default to the currently selected player ship. And it'll be possible to switch between player ships if there are multiple players really easily. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen Thorium Classic where you're able to switch between which ship you're working with. I don't know that I have Thorium Classic open anymore anyway. But it actually is possible if you start a ship with or start a flight with multiple ships, you can switch which ship you're interacting with your core. So that'll still be possible. But at the same time, you'll be able to select specific ships, NPC ships, and get roughly the same views. And then the Marauders map is another thing that's going to be interesting. I imagine it'll be very similar to the Star map, except inside the ship. But you'll still be able to like navigate around and stuff.
Yeah. Well, cool. Good ideas. Good ideas all around.
Mm-hmm. Thanks for joining. I really appreciate you coming in with the live code save there.
I was a little bit late, but I'm glad I came in the nick of time.
It's all good.
Yeah.
I need to do something to make sure that this keeps going. I don't know how to do that though. Just
how do you
mean? The amount of interaction has decreased substantially in the past week and a half or so. Not as many people getting involved and stuff. And it'd be a real shame if this just again turned into the Alex show and nobody else is able to join or contribute or anything because I've made it so messy and complex and stuff. Hopefully that's not going to be the case. I've learned my lesson, but it'll take a lot of work on my part, and I would prefer to if other people joined and helped out. But beggars cannot be choosers. I will take what I can get.
Yep. I mean, Dade has done a wonderful job. So Mostly by
Yes.
himself.
Well, let's take a look. You can leave if you want.
I'll look at this and then I'll head out.
Yeah. Am I still sharing my screen?
Yes, you are.
Yes.
Good thing I didn't
Hi,
do anything
Matt,
embarrassing.
by the way.
Hello.
Um,
How are you feeling?
Feeling much better than I have been.
That's good.
So, yeah, if Tabitha's still not feeling well tomorrow, I can take the day flight if needed be.
just so you know, this is going to be recorded and put on YouTube.
Oh, sorry.
It's all good. You can talk about it. Just wanted to make sure you're clear. So
I
yeah,
would like to know.
Dade, it's really interesting to look at this. So he's done 307,000 lines of code in this, which is impressive, certainly. And there have been spikes of activity from other contributors, but it has mostly been Dade.
Yeah.
So yeah, just a few people putting just a few little things here and there. Not very much. And Thorium Classic's about the same. That's Thorium Nova. We want just regular Thorium. So you've got 1.5 million lines of code, but
Oh
I've
my
deleted way
goodness.
more. Yeah.
Mhm.
And then this guy did a bit. Jordan did a bit. A couple of things here and there. Blue Shadow came in clutch and gave us the empty epsilon theme, which is just so baller. Oh, hey, I know him.
Yeah, he's weird.
So, and then it just hitters out again. A couple of people doing just a couple of things here and there.
Yeah,
So
makes sense.
that is that. Anyway,
Cool.
but having Thorium Nova be open source means that people have the ability to contribute. And I'm specifically designing it such that contributing is going to be easier, more friendly. There's going to be less weird stuff that people have to learn and do, like no GraphQL, and good documentation and such. So
Yeah, that makes
that's all
sense.
good. Anyway, pleasure talking with you, Matt. Natalie, anything else you want to talk about?
Sorry. You did mention that you wanted my opinion on static station sets.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
I don't know what's already been shared. And I think that there are pros and cons to having static and dynamic because, I mean, if you write a mission, you want to have a particular thing for that particular mission. You know, I guess technically you can add it into the station set and then that card would appear, right? Theoretically.
So the idea would be you have ship templates and the missions are able to define what things are required. And so you wouldn't be able to use a ship template that doesn't work. So for example, if you require a cloaking device, then if the ship template doesn't have a cloaking device, either the mission, either you make it, you override the ship template and make it so that the mission, so that it has a cloaking device, or it just denies you outright.
Right. Yeah, but something that I've thought of, and maybe this is just me misunderstanding because I'm not a programmer, but I think that if the station sets were static, then it'd be easier to track down where issues are because when you have more moving pieces, it's harder to track down bugs in a lot of ways because sometimes it's like, oh, well, is it because like often the Odyssey will have, which is the ship I fly for the people lovely out on YouTube, I suppose. Sometimes the Odyssey will have bugs and none of the other ships will have that bug. And we don't know exactly what it is about our configuration that is making that bug happen because it's happening because we have done it in such a way. And so I feel like if it's static, you can track down the issue a little bit easier.
The way that we would implement it, it would be basically the same because it's not static. It's different based on every ship and based on the number of players. And so it would still have exactly the same problems that Thorium Classic has in that you're describing.
Well,
Hopefully, it
then, in
doesn't
that
have those
case,
problems because it's programmed good, not programmed bad.
I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
I'd say that Thorium Classic isn't bad.
I mean, in its
It just has
offense,
issues.
in its offense, it was how I learned like a lot of programming crap, and so yeah,
It's a baby.
I was a baby programmer.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's my thought process on it. Is just that there was something kind of, maybe I just have nostalgia for Jumpstart. But
Jumpstart is pretty solid.
yeah. Well, I mean, it's based on Revolution, but
Well, it is Revolution.
yeah. Anyway, those controls worked for a very long time. Did a very
Mhm.
good job. Had a lot of cool features. So did Matt talk about the feature of having the flight director screen change depending on what the crew was looking at?
No, but I could add that into the list.
I mean, I don't know if that's something that you want to do for core, but that is something that we had on core at one point that does, I mean, technically it's more complicated, but at the same time, you're not looking at everything all at once. You have the different tabs for each station that shows the different screens, and you can go to whichever one whenever you want, and you can uncheck the box that makes it so that it goes to whatever screen they're on. But it can be
Mhm.
really useful to at a glance see where everyone is looking right now, and to help the crew on that
Yeah.
side of things.
It'll be interesting to see how this shakes out. I don't
Yeah.
think you were here, but we talked about making it so that there's a jumpstart-like screen along with the command palette for beginners, so they can
Mhm.
see everything at a glance, and they can use the command palette to do stuff. But
Mhm.
it's compartmentalized and stuff.
Yeah.
And then there's, let me share my screen really quick. You get to see this
Oh,
second
cool.
demo. Woohoo! There's this super awesome tool that is
sorry.
going to seem very similar. Like you have these tabs that you can move around and put them in different places like this, just like with
Mhm.
Thorium's dynamic layout. But
Yeah,
then
those little corticals.
you can also put them into tab groups like this, which is really
Mm.
nice. You can dock them on the side and have them pop in and out like that.
Ooh,
Yep. You
like
can,
Photoshop.
yes, like Photoshop. You can, oh, wow, you can pop it out into its own window. That's cool. I don't know if I really like that, but you can maximize it and resize it like this, obviously. And then what I really like is you can click this button here to add a new, so you can click add active.
Mhm.
Let's see, why isn't that working? Oh, did I break it?
Is
I
broken.
I broke it. So, oh wow, that's really broken. Okay, let's try this again in Chrome. So there, it's working again. So I can click add active and it adds the tab to whatever the currently active tab is, which is fine. But then you can also click add indirect. And what that does is it puts this little thing here and says, drag it where you want it, which is really great.
Mm.
Really nice UI, much better than Thorium Nova or Thorium Classic.
Thorium Classic is kind of hard to set up. Once you get your layout, it's great.
But
But it
changing the
takes a
layout
lot of
isn't great.
finagling.
Yeah, because let me switch back to the dynamic. Because you hit edit, and then from here you can drag them around to the different places, which is fine. But changing what they
Resizing is
are,
hard.
yeah, resizing is kind of hard because you got to do it like this. And I don't know if that would be any easier with flex layout, like
Mhm.
because it still has the same basic constraints.
Mhm.
Let's see. Yeah, because that's going to resize both of them together. It's not just going to resize this one. And so that's just the way that it is. But then adding a new one is kind of a pain because you got to come here and click this button and then it breaks.
Look at that, it crashes.
Look, it crashed. Yeah.
Yeah, but if you refresh, not by clicking the refresh button, but by doing Command R, it'll generally, yeah.
Yeah. And then you come here and choose which one you want, or I can come up to the edit menu and choose it from here. And that's just not ideal. So it'd be awesome if you had a add core button up here. You choose the core that you want from a drop down, and then it does this thing where it's like, okay, put it where you want it to go. And you put it where you want it to go.
I feel like that would be easier too, because if you go back to the Thorium one, you notice, click the edit checkbox again. The sizing is off. So when you edit it, when you have it on edit, everything gets just slightly smaller, and so it's not actually accurate to how it actually is. And so you have more space or less space depending. Do you see how the dilithium stress in the bottom right hand corner?
Mm-hmm.
If you uncheck that box, you can see it. And so it just, you have to constantly be checking and unchecking that, and like seeing on the sizes and stuff to see what it is that you can actually see in the layout when you actually have it. Which, I mean, in a way, it's kind of like having your fast be your clock be 5 minutes fast, so that you'll never be late because you're always late. It's kind of like that, where it's like, oh, now I actually do have more space, but it also is nice to actually see what is actually there.
Yeah. The idea there is that I wanted to make it so that when you weren't editing, you had as much screen real estate as possible, but you need to have the extra real estate for the drop downs and for the gutters so that you can actually drag it around. So
yeah, exactly.
That's the trade-off.
It's needed. It's needed. Yeah. I'm not saying that it's wrong
Just
or anything.
the way that it is.
Yep.
Anyway, I think that's all I've got. I don't know that.
I don't have anything else to add. Was this more of a controls meeting than a flight director meeting?
I mean, we were talking about the flight director controls, so having flight directors present to be able to talk about it is handy. But not like you were the only one here. I invited everyone. None of them came except you.
I'm sorry. I was going to come earlier too. I just,
it's all good. It's all good. People have lives. That's the struggle.
I had a very important nap to take, and I didn't know about it until I was in it.
Yes. Anyway, always a pleasure. We shall talk soon.
Yep.
Okay. Toodles.
Bye.